Sound advice to keep your body and mind in perfect harmony. You're tuned in to the Dr. Stephen Show. Now, here is Dr. Stephen Eisenberg.
I just want to get into this by starting with, how did you come up with the idea for anxiety free with food? Now we're gonna go back to the Earth diet soon, because that's your origin story, and I always have to hear how you got that going. But let's get into the new book, because it just was released. It's so vital. It's so amazing. Tell us how this came to be, Anxiety Free with Food.
For sure. Yeah. So I was experiencing a heightened amount of anxiety, and I was thinking, where is this coming from? And I thought, is this mental, emotional, spiritual, or physical? And it's a good question to ask ourselves with any health issue. And I really felt like it was physical, because I was doing a lot of work spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and I just had a feeling that maybe something was off in my brain chemistry. Maybe some nutrients were off. So I went and got a blood test done. And sure enough, I was deficient in one of the key nutrients that if we are deficient in, we will have anxiety, according to science and researchers. So the nutrient I was deficient in was omega-3 fatty acids. Yeah. And so I started taking fish oil supplements, started eating wild salmon, walnuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds. And within days, I felt better. And within days, it was remarkable. I was like, hang on a minute. I thought it's this easy to fix a nutrient deficiency that's causing anxiety. And my anxiety levels went way down. My brain felt more whole, if that makes sense, like less scattered, less all over the place, was able to focus. And I thought, okay, this is the next subject I'm going to write about. I want to tell everyone about this. And then I started to dive into it even more, found out more causes for anxiety. And then I learned something that's so fascinating that I don't think enough people know about, is that there are actually foods that scientists have called anxiogenic foods, which means anxiety producing substances. So these are actually foods and substances that cause anxiety, and they're proven. And then there's foods that are anxiolytic, foods that help to reduce or clear anxiety. And so that was what I wanted to put in the book.
I love this. Tell me some, tell me more about the anxiety, producing foods, some of those, and anxiolytic foods, because because we need to, the Dr. Stephen Show is always about what can we do right now? What can we go home with? And obviously I want everyone listening to get the book, because we're anxious. And I suffered, I'd say, from anxiety as a child. And I have anxious children. I have 3 children, 2 out of 3. I mean, that's a majority, anxious. And, they probably got it from me, because my wife is like chill. Julie, are you listening? My wife is so chill, a lot more than me. And I was an anxious child. And I used to eat horribly as a medical resident in Philadelphia. I was living on Philly cheesesteaks, and and sleeping horrible hours, being up all night, being called by patients, and in the hospital. And at 3 a.m, I'd look around. And I would take one of those Ensures from the nurses, Ensure Plus, filled with sugar. It's those drinks for patients. I was so hungry. I'd be like, oh, there's an Ensure Plus chocolate. And I take it and I chug it at 3 a.m. It's like, first ingredients like sugar, right? And so that's what I was living on as a medical resident. And, I had anxiety. I had tons of anxiety. So if I had your book when I was doing my medical training, I think it would have been better off. What should I have been eating instead of Philly cheesesteaks when I was in medical residency, internal medicine in Philadelphia. To all my Philadelphia brethren out there, get off the cheesesteaks and listen to Liana. What should we be eating? What can we swap out? What's the first thing we could do?
Well, the first thing that we have to cut, which is the proven number one anxiogenic food, is, you can probably guess what it is. It's sugar.
Sugar.
Yes, word. Yes. Refined sugar, meaning white sugar, corn syrup, brown sugar, even cane sugar. So these are neurotoxic. So they damage the brain, they damage the nervous system, they damage the gut. It causes anxiety. And
Yeah.
it's said that the immune system is suppressed for 8 hours after we eat sugar, refined sugar, and we can experience anxiety for hours and hours after eating refined sugar. So it's just not worth it. But my specialty is in addictions. And so this is where I love to come in and help people who have sugar addictions, because I used to be in that boat. I was very addicted to sugar, and we'll get into that. And that's how I led to the Earth diet. But for 5 years, all I ate every day was refined sugar. That was my diet. The number one food I ate was refined sugar. That's why I ended up getting so sick and got the tumor in my lymphatic system. And that's what led me down this path. But so now, instead of eating refined white sugar, we can enjoy all the things we want, but as long as they are sweetened with wholesome sweeteners. And the earth and nature, or God, provides us with all the natural sweetness that we need. So we can eat cookie dough that's sweetened with coconut sugar or maple syrup, chocolate sweetened with coconut sugar. So as long as we eat honey or maple syrup or coconut sugar or stevia or monk fruit, those are, or dates or fruits, those are more wholesome, and the body can actually digest those natural sugars, and they're not neurotoxic for the brain. So just making that one switch will completely change somebody's life.
It's amazing. I mean, let's get into it a little bit more with the sugar, because, there's a lot of, I love stevia, by the way. I love stevia, not just because my name is Stevie. I love stevia because it's natural. And I've been, the whole high fructose corn syrup, right? The whole industry. So but it's not just high fructose corn syrup, right, Liana? It's the other things they sneak in, right? They sneak in and they try to make sugar sound more natural, like cane sugar. Is that okay? I mean, for everyone listening, they sneak in sugar in other ways, don't they?
They do.
Whoever they are. Who am I saying? Who are they? The industry.
Food
But
industry.
right, it's not just high fructose corn syrup. They can disguise it with other names, right?
They can, yeah. They have a lot of interesting names for sugar these days. Sucralose, glucose, they'll put on there, and that could just mean another word for corn syrup. They're very sneaky because people woke up to it and they were like, okay, corn syrup's bad. And so they started to change the name.
Yeah.
And I talk about that more in the book as well. Cane sugar is, if put in front of me, if there was cane sugar, as long as it's like still the yellowy brown in color, and there was white sugar put in front of me, I had to choose, obviously I would choose to have cane sugar, but I avoid it at all costs. It has gone through a process. It's still a lot for the body to have to digest. It's not as neurotoxic as refined white sugar, which they bleach, by the way. So yeah, the food industry is responsible for a lot of anxiety and cancer and a lot of health issues.
Now you brought up cancer, and as an oncologist, I get this every single day that I go into the office. Hey, doc, should I cut out sugar? And I tell them, yeah. I mean, it's but it's not, it's about getting the more natural sweetener. It's getting to stevia. It's getting to, you can still put honey in your tea.
Yes.
It's getting off of the refined, horrible sugars that spike your blood glucose levels, and then you can get metabolic syndrome and the neurotoxins, because it's just adding fuel to the fire. It's adding fuel to the fire, the anxiety, the depression. And so, you know, we talk about getting off the refined sugar. We talk about increasing green vegetables, you know, cruciferous vegetables. The
Right.
cover of your book, right? I mean,
Yes.
let's see the cover again. See those greens?
Those are broccoli sprouts,
Broccoli.
which is
Yes.
so great for anxiety and cancer. I wrote in my cancer
Talk
food.
to us about broccoli sprouts. Go.
Yeah. So in the cancer food book, I wanted to research, okay, I had a completely open mind. What are the top foods on earth that have been proven to help heal cancer or help people if they're going through chemo radiation? And so out of all the research, number one I found was broccoli sprouts, which was fascinating. Number one, and that's because of the compound sulforaphane and all the studies that they did with humans and rodents. The cancer cells died in sulforaphane. They cannot survive. So if people are getting diagnosed with cancer, if I myself was diagnosed, first thing I would do is start drinking broccoli sprout juice every day. In fact, I made a green juice today and I put broccoli sprouts in it. And
Yes.
it's so good to have that compound sulforaphane every day. I have a greens powder with broccoli sprouts in it as well. So I travel with that. And yeah, I mean, just a very, very powerful compound for keeping our body cancer free. And in the book, I say we want to create an environment in our body that just can't grow cancer. It's going to be inhospitable to cancer or any disease for that matter. And that's up to us to create that environment.
Yes, we talk about the microenvironment, making your body, making the microenvironment, the microbiome, the entire environment of your body, not a place where cancer can thrive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I've seen supplements that have that ingredient, that broccoli sprout, but it's better to have the natural broccoli sprouts, is it not? Or I know you can get a supplement, but it's better to just make a shake. What did you have? Tell us exactly what you put in your shake this morning, because if there's anybody who we should model the shake, this is like, okay, do this shake. Tell us the ingredients, if you would be so kind, my friend.
For sure. Yeah. So I used fresh broccoli sprouts in it, and fresh is always, always best because it has that living element to it. And I grew up in Outback Australia with the indigenous people, and they taught me that from a young age, that foods that come straight from earth have this life force. They have this healing energy. So I use the fresh broccoli sprouts, but if I can't get those, I'll take a supplement or the broccoli sprouts green powder, because you're still getting the compound. It's better than nothing.
Yes.
So today in the green juice, I did celery and cucumber, because that makes it like very watery, and you get a lot of juice out of that. And then I did the broccoli sprouts, then I did some lemon and ginger, and then I added one orange, and this made 4 juices. And that orange, it doesn't make the juice sweet at all. You can't really taste it. It just kind of balances it. It's awesome. Adds that vitamin C. And I have a new juicer, the Nama juicer, which is a cold press technology. Nice. And so it's awesome. So that means,
how can people get that? Can they put in the Liana code for a discount?
Of course they can. Yeah, Liana, you get 10% discount. It's namawell.com. And it's awesome. I've been waiting for a juicer like this to come out on the market for years and years.
I'm getting that one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it really is the best one on the market because we get more for what we put in. So the pulp comes out dry, which is what we want. We want like the juicer to be extracting all the juice and all the nutrients from it and leaving the pulp dry. And because it's cold press technology, it doesn't zap it with oxygen. So we can drink that 3 days later. So it is a good time saver. We can make a juice today, and then I have juice now for tomorrow and for the next day. So I'm set.
I love it. I love it. Now, you mentioned growing up in the Outback. I've been there. Okay. When I finished my internship, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so burned out. I want to get away from here. I got to get out of Philly. So where did I go? Australia.
You did a walkabout. Wow, nice.
I did. When after college, my college roommate Freddie and I backpacked across Europe, and we met these amazing Australians. And they're like, if you're ever in Australia, look us up. So I looked. I called them. Now this was back in there was no cell phones. I was on
Right.
like a regular phone, like beep, boop, boop, like Australian country code. And I called them and I said, I'm coming to Australia. They put me up in their house.
Yeah, Aussies are so nice.
They put me up. So I did a walkabout after Australia, after internship going into residency. And I learned so much. I learned how to play the didgeridoo.
Awesome. Good
And
on you.
and the circular breathing was helping my lungs. My asthma went away. It helped my anxiety. I mean, the breathing, right? The circular breathing. I learned so much, and I love Australia. I've been there. So,
That's awesome. Of course,
but
you
I
had
want.
cool spirit. All the coolest spirits go to Australia. I encourage anyone who's listening, if you've been wanting to go to Australia for a while, go as soon as borders open up and everything. Definitely enjoy it.
Tell us a little bit about your childhood, and then tell us, like, what was it like growing up for you, and then how you, from growing up, you transitioned into coming up with the Earth diet, and how you became a nutritionist. I know I'm asking a lot, but take me back to your childhood and how you first became interested in health and wellness. And I do want to hear a little bit about this, the lymphatic um,
Hmm.
the lymphatic issue. You
Hmm.
mentioned a lymphatic tumor. And so I want to hear a little bit about your childhood, because to become such a triple best-selling author, you really had to go through some experiences to become the amazing you that you are. And for everyone out there, I want you to know that you can overcome any obstacle. And Liana, I mean, look at me. I was anxiety riddled, a little kid with a huge with huge hair and buck teeth and weighing 100 pounds soaking wet. And here I am interviewing the best-selling author Liana Werner-Gray. So what I'm telling you is, take us back to your childhood, and how did you become who you are today? What struggles did you have as a child?
Hmm. Yeah, so I grew up in Outback Australia, right in the middle in Alice Springs. And so half my school was Aboriginal and half was white. And we were taught a lot about indigenous culture. And so we were taken out on school excursions and we were taught how to survive in nature, in the bush. And I remember at 5 years old, just something going in my mind like, okay, wow, noted that the indigenous people were so healthy. And I thought they were so wise and so just incredible, because they lived off the earth and they would take from the earth for their survival, but they would also give back to the earth. So it was like this really harmonious cycle, and they never had any health issues at all. Obviously, health issues did not exist in indigenous culture or paleo times. I mean, they had other struggles of survival and things like that, but health issues was not one of them, because they were completely eating straight from the earth. They were eating what nature intended for humans to eat, or for what God intended for us to eat.
Yes.
So I remember like that going off in my mind thinking, okay, that's cool. So the healthier, the closer we are to nature, the healthier we are. And then
Beautiful.
yeah, so I had a very natural upbringing. My parents were very healthy, quite healthy. And then when I was a teenager, I moved to the city, to Brisbane City, to go to university. And this is where I started to go downhill, because I was uprooted from my culture, didn't have my parents around to tell me what to eat. So I started to dabble in eating refined sugar. So I would go to 7-Eleven and eat chocolate, Tim Tams, lollies, Doritos, and I would basically my
They have
diet.
7-Eleven in Australia?
They did, believe it or not, they have 7-Eleven.
And
They
I thought a Wawa was only in Philly. Go ahead.
they didn't have McDonald's actually until I was 12. So yeah,
Good.
to go to the city and see all these like convenience stores, I was like, wow. And it was a drug, because I'd never really had it that much.
Right.
So I quickly became very impulsive towards it, very addicted to it. Addiction runs in my family. And this is interesting too, if we look at what our family history is, and we know that we're predisposed to that DNA, and that if we do certain things, we will trigger those health issues. So I, sure enough, did trigger the addiction, and then soon to come depression, anxiety, and the cancer gene as well. So not very long after I moved, I started to have my diet completely, like breakfast would be gummy bears and lunch would be chocolate, dinner would be Pizza Hut or KFC or McDonald's, and all I ate was fast food, and I hid it from everyone. I didn't want anyone to know. So that was another thing, that it was a secret, and secrets, human beings, like we're not designed to keep a secret like that in. So it just festered and became so bad. And after 5 years of this, and I would always tell myself, you know what, Monday I'll start again fresh and I'll never eat cookies like the Aboriginals ever again.
We make deals with ourselves.
Yeah. And then I would say, okay, the rest of the week I'm going to eat whatever I want. I would just go on a huge bender, huge binge. Monday would come and then I'd wake up craving gummy bears. And the impulse was so strong that I couldn't fight it and didn't have the tools, didn't know how to do it. So after 5 years of that, one day something just popped in my neck. Yeah. And I went to the naturopath because I was always more inclined from the natural lifestyle. And she said, you need to go to the hospital. This looks really serious. Yeah. And I was almost 22 at the time. I was 21. And I went to the hospital. They did a biopsy. And as they were pulling a piece of it out, I just remember thinking, what have I done to myself? And I knew at that point that I really had to surrender and say, okay, universe, okay, God, I need help. I don't know how I'm going to break this. I feel, so bad. And now people with addiction know when they feel bad, the first thing they want to do is go and get that drug again so that they don't feel bad. So I was like, I just want to go to McDonald's, even though I was sitting in hospital with this thing in my throat. And then, and so by this point it was 3.7 centimeters. And I posted, the biopsy on my website for people to see.
What was it?
So I had 3 different diagnoses, and this was my first introduction to the medical industry, and it was very confusing.
Yeah, I'm sorry for you. I mean, we're crazy, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I had to learn real quick. So the doctor in the hospital, he said that it was early stages of cancer, and I was like, okay. And he's like, we can do surgery. He's like, but you don't need chemo radiation, but we can cut it out if you want. And I said, well, I don't really want to cut it out if it's early stages. It doesn't seem serious. Not, I don't feel like it's going to kill me. So then I went and saw another doctor. I saw 2 more medical doctors after that who was working with the naturopath I was working with. And one of them said it was stage 1, and then one said it was stage 0. And I was like, how can they, by a biopsy, how can they give me different diagnosis from the same biopsy? So to me, it felt very, very confusing. One of the doctors offered me a cervical vaccination at the same time. And I was like, I came here for this. I don't need a cervical vaccination. So that was my first kind of wake up call to the medical industry. And I thought, you know what? I know I did this to myself. So I'm going to try and heal this with nutrition and actually heal this, why I'm eating all this junk food, before I would do anything medical. And so because they weren't telling me, it's stage 4, you're going to die in a month, I didn't feel that pressure. And so I left and I basically changed everything. And I did a whole detox. My gut was not functioning properly either. I was a lot heavier. My skin was yellow. My blood work also showed I was on the verge of leukemia. So my immune system was so low. I was also diagnosed with chronic fatigue. Like, I was a mess. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go on a detox. I worked with the naturopath and did colonics, coffee enemas, reflexology. I did the Vibraflex machine to help with my lymphatic system. And then I started juicing. I started juicing 6 times a day.
Wow.
And because I knew from my upbringing that if I was to drink juice, I thought, what's the quickest way for me to put nutrition into my body? Because my body was so deprived for 5 years prior. I thought, okay, I need to basically overdose my system on nutrition. So what's the quickest and healthiest way to do that? And I looked into getting an IV, vitamin C. I had no money. I could not afford that. And I was like, okay. So then I came across juicing. And I learned that if we drink a juice, a vegetable juice, it puts that nutrition straight into our cells very quickly, very rapidly. We feel better. And it also helps to build new cells by detoxing out the old cells. So every time I drank the juice, I thought, new body going in, old body going out, new body going in, like cancer cells going out, new body out. Yeah. So I felt like I was transforming so quickly. And then this is how I came up with the earth diet.
Ooh, so it was directly from the experience.
Directly from the experience. Yes.
And the earth diet, tell us, so you're starting to feel better. And
Yeah. So
this thing's going away.
yeah, so it started to dissolve. It took me 3 months total for it to completely dissolve, completely leave my body. And
Wow.
I was nervous that I would start to crave foods again, like chocolate, burgers, French fries, chicken nuggets, all that food.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, what can I do? And I had this light bulb moment and thought, all right, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a blog and I'm going to call it the Earth Diet. And it's going to be a challenge that for 365 days, I'm only going to eat foods that come straight from the earth, whole foods, natural foods, nourishing foods, like very nutrient dense foods. I was so excited and I was like, okay, every time I have a craving for chocolate, I'm going to think, how can I make this chocolate at home using wholesome, natural earth ingredients? And so I started to make chocolate balls with almond flour, real cacao powder, some honey, bit of sea salt, bit of vanilla, and then I would add peanut butter or almond butter to it. And I would eat these chocolate balls every day and it fulfilled my chocolate craving. And it stopped me from craving the unhealthy chocolate that was destroying my body with refined white sugar, emulsifiers, and dairy. So, and I call this now the upgrade system. And I did this with every food that I was craving as a craving came along. So chicken nuggets, I made those, burgers, I made those. And it ended up going viral. You know, people from all around the world were like, wow, I'm doing the same thing. I'm binge eating on junk food. I'm hiding it. I'm not telling anyone. Like, this is amazing. They started using the recipes and breaking their impulsive eating addiction to sugar and fast foods as well.
365 days.
Yeah.
I mean, so you were making, it starts off with making those substitutions,
Mm-hmm.
those swaps,
Yep.
like cauliflower rice, right? Instead of like white refined rice, for example, or something like that, right? Making
That's another one. Yeah. Well,
those switches,
mhm.
those easy switches, right? I mean, they're not so easy, right? They're hard. I mean, it's easy, but it's hard to get that mindset. How did you get your mindset? Sure, you went through this crisis, and it was, you were, as they say in the addiction world, you basically had hit rock bottom,
Yes. Mm-hmm. I
and
have.
you had to make a change.
Right.
How can someone out there listening right now, how can they get their mindset? What's the first thing they can do to get their mindset screwed on correctly, so to start this diet, to start getting to the Liana Werner-Gray earth diet, cancer free with food, anxiety free with food? How can they start to make this switch up here?
Yeah. Well, that is the switch here. And once this happens, everything else happens. And so that's why it was so easy for me and so fun and exciting because I said, okay, I think people need to have a willingness and openness that they can still eat their favorite foods. And it's not about taking those away from you. It's about finding a way to still fulfill those cravings, but in a more healthy way that's going to leave you feeling good in the moment, but also hours later as well, and not develop into a disease years later. So I was totally open because I had no other option. But if people just think, okay, if there really is a way for me to fulfill all the foods I want to eat in a more natural way, healthy way, I'm open. I'm all about it. I'm all ears. I want to hear about it. And there really is. And I've been working now coaching people for 11 years, and people are always so surprised when they're like, okay, well, what can I eat for French fries or pizza or cheese? And it's a conversation. It's like, okay, well, there's a few different ways you can still enjoy French fries. You can make them yourself at home with organic potatoes in the air fryer or the oven, or fry them with avocado oil or coconut oil. Okay, what sounds most exciting to you? Or you can buy organic French fries from Whole Foods in the frozen section. I always have French fries in my freezer, by the way, always. I have some now. And then you can just put them in the oven really quickly and you have some French fries. Or find a restaurant in your area that's using cleaner potatoes and cleaner oils as well. So you can fulfill all those food needs in those way, and that's an upgrade, and it's not going to leave you feeling physically drained or mentally drained.
So it's an upgrade system, and that's what you call it.
Yeah.
So you're still getting that cravings, you're satisfying the craving, but in a much healthier way. And it's
Exactly.
and it's believing that it's possible.
Yeah, faith and believing is the first step. And you only need to have, biblically, all you need to have is a tiny mustard seed of faith. So if you have in your mind somewhere, okay, somewhere deep in there, yep, it's possible, you're good to go. You're set. And then that faith will just become bigger and bigger as you start to get momentum. You'll be like, okay, wow, it really works. And yeah, the upgrade system is in your mind. It's a mindset.
Yeah, and I love it. I love it. And I mean, I can relate to your story so very much because I I became so burned out as a very young oncologist. I was striving to be perfect every single day, to build the best practice, to beat out all the other oncologists, and I lost a sense of myself, and I was so stressed. I was eating horribly. I wasn't sleeping, and my gut just went horribly wrong, and I developed colitis.
Mm.
And I had chronic fatigue, and I had migraines, and I just felt horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I started believing there was a different way. And it came in the form of a song, believe it or not.
Nice.
Because I've always loved to write songs, and so I entered this little contest from one of my favorite artists. It was a story contest, and the prize was the artist would write a song for you, and I won the prize. And he wrote a song about my struggle and how I wanted to bring music to cancer patients. And when I heard that, it gave me a glimmer of hope that I could turn this around and I could get my health back and get my gut healthy, and I could then write songs for cancer patients. So it's that little spark, that mustard seed, as you said. And my rock bottom was when I got this really aggressive form of skin cancer. Right
Oh,
here, over my heart, right here. I
wow.
have a scar. I needed surgery and the whole thing.
Mhm.
So the oncologist got aggressive skin cancer. And then I turned it all around, by reading authors like you. And then I want us to transition now from earth diet to cancer free with food.
Mm.
For all of the patients out there ever touched, all of the listeners. Well, we're all patients. I'm a patient. People are patients. I say people, not patients, right? People, not patients. But we're all one day going to be some sort of patient, right?
Mhm.
You've
It's
been a
true.
patient. I've been a patient. But how did you go from the Earth Diet to your second book? How did that come about? I know you were able to deal with this lymphatic issue through the Earth Diet, basically,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so you then took that into a program for people struggling with any kind of cancer issue.
Yeah, I was really upset by hearing, naturally so many people with cancer would come to my website and ask me questions about nutrition. And I was so upset by how their doctors were telling them, or their oncologists were telling them, that nutrition doesn't matter, food doesn't matter. They said it's fine after chemo, go over to Starbucks and get a Coca-Cola because you need caffeine. And I was just like in shock. In shock. My face can't even express, like, this is crazy. And that's why, I mean, patients are so blessed to have you as their oncologist, because you actually do tell them about nutrition. No, we need more oncologists like that. And, I often think as a nutritionist, we aren't legally allowed to give medical advice or tell, prescribe medicine. And I just don't think doctors should have the right to give nutrition advice, because they're destroying people's health when it's like that. And so I thought, you know what? I want to write a book, Cancer Free with Food, and help anyone out there who has cancer, if they're going through treatment or if they want to heal it completely naturally. Here are all the foods, that science and researchers are saying that help to prevent cancer and heal cancer. And it's become a really popular book also for people who have cancer in their genes and they're afraid that they might get it one day, and they want to just take care of their diet. And it just gives people so much peace of mind to know, okay, if I eat these certain foods, I reduce my risk of getting cancer. And if I eat these certain foods, I increase my risk of getting cancer. And there are literally foods that feed cancer if someone has it, and then foods that help to kill cancer cells and make the body stronger than the cancer. And so I wanted to put together recipes also for people with cancer. And then I interviewed a lot of survivors, and they provided some of the recipes that they use to get through the chemo brain, and the smoothies that they made. Yeah, so that's how that came about. I had to gather up some confidence as well, because, cancer is such a controversial subject. And when I first started writing about it way back in the day, I think 2010, um, it wasn't well received. And because back then food was not regarded as medicine as it is now. It's so much easier now for us to speak on this than it was 10 years ago. We were really put into like a quack category, and now it's becoming more mainstream, which is great. And that's my mission, is to help make this message more mainstream, because it should. And that's why so many of us natural food people, we put so much science into our books, because we're trying to show people, this isn't quackery. This is actually, first of all, it's common sense, it's nature, it's food, and then also science supports it, showing that certain things do help to reduce our risk of getting any disease or even mental health issue.
Yeah, it's so important. I call it the best of the best. I call it the best of the best. It's the best of, Western medicine, I guess, with double-blind, randomized, controlled studies, but also the best of nature, the best of nature and God and food. And there's the anti-inflammatory diet, there's the anti-cancer diet. These are anti-inflammatory foods.
Mm-hmm.
Inflammation has been shown to exacerbate the growth of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so many of I'm sure most of the foods, and I know from reading Cancer Free with Food, many of the foods are anti-inflammatory. If not all of the foods are anti-inflammatory.
Yeah, well, some are anti-inflammatory and some are upgrades. So, and this is where there was a bit of criticism for the book. It was like, well, why do you have a recipe for cookie dough and chocolate? And I'm like, well, because if you tell a cancer patient who's addicted to cookies, like, you can't have them anymore, that's not realistic. They're most likely going to go and eat the bad cookies unless you show them how to make it themselves at home healthier with maple syrup or honey, or a brand that is better. And this is called replacement therapy. And this is 90% of the time, it's the only thing that works for people with addiction and with cancer. So, yeah.
Yes, no. It's brilliant, because guess what? I can tell a patient until the cows come home, go home and cut out sugar. And guess what they do? They go home and they don't listen. Many patients with lung cancer go home and they keep smoking. I have patients that smoke through their trach, with lung cancer.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant. You have to meet human beings where they are.
Yes.
We all have addiction.
Yes.
And when you have cancer, it becomes harder. All of your energy is going towards fighting the cancer. You have nothing left to fight the other addictions in your life, be it alcohol, sugar, drugs, gambling, whatever it is, right?
Exactly.
It exacerbates it. So it's brilliant that we have an upgraded form of cookie dough, so they don't go out and just live on horrible candy bars, like, really unhealthy candy bars. They're going out and they're having a healthier option
Yes,
because they're going to do what they want to do.
exactly.
Patients, I'm in the trenches. I can tell you, anyone who ever criticized that, they're wrong, because patients are going to do what they do. They come in and say, I've heard sugar's bad. And say, well, yes, but you're going through treatment. You're on chemo right now for, say, like early stage breast cancer, and we're trying to increase the cure rate. It's a very brief course of chemo. Well, brief, like 4 treatments, once every 3 weeks. But we can support you through it with food.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole foods that have these nutrients, these phytonutrients that fight cancer, that can enhance. As long as it doesn't hurt you, it can only enhance the cure rate. And doctors, look, I love doctors. I love medicine, but we have to be open-minded. We have to embrace and show love to the wonderful Liana Werner-Gray and all of the naturopaths and the wonderful message that you're bringing, which is, look, we have addiction, which is so true. We all have it, whether it's, you know, food, TV,
We all
stress.
have a vice.
We all have a vice. And it just gets exacerbated when you are so stressed and scared and depressed and anxious,
Yes.
anxiety free with food. We're coming full circle because it exacerbates it when you're going through a horrible illness. It's called depression of medical illness. It's in the DSM-4, depression of medical illness, anxiety of medical illness. It makes everything worse. So now we've got cancer-free with food. And I truly, truly honor and bless you for bringing that to light. And I recommend your book to every single one of my patients because it enhances what they're doing. And it gives them the option to replace, because we know that going cold turkey is
No.
it's just not the way. I mean, you can do it for a day or two, especially, we've all heard of the New Year's resolutions that work for, maybe 2 weeks out of 1 month, and then you're right back into it. The old patterns, the old brain patterns.
Exactly.
How anxiety, now we're coming full circle back. Now tell us from cancer free with food how you got to anxiety free with food, and how breaking that brain pattern, with helping to break the brain pattern, the loop of anxiety, the vicious circle. How do we take the vicious circle of anxiety and reverse it to a virtuous cycle, a virtuous loving based cycle, using your plan with anxiety free with food? So now you've published Cancer Free with Food. You're best-selling author 2 times. Now we have the new book released just, very, very recently. Tell us now how we transition into anxiety free with food. We all have some anxious moments in our lives. Some of us are deeply afflicted. This book is for you. How do we get to that place in our lives right now, this crazy world we're living in?
So I read an interesting stat when I was writing Cancer Free with Food that people with cancer majority of them have anxiety and depression. And I don't know why that was
Yes.
surprising to me. And I was like, oh, of course, because that diagnosis is stressful. And then so
There's
that
nothing scarier.
very
Name one thing that's scarier than you have that word, C word.
Yes, exactly. So that planted the seed. And then when I started, I was on the earth diet, eating so healthy, but then I was still experiencing anxiety, and I was like, okay, what's going on? And then when I had that blood test that revealed I was deficient, and omega-3s, and very so quickly reduce the anxiety. That's when I was very inspired to want to share this with the world. And I really dove into it more. And I learned that also if we're deficient in vitamin D, we will have anxiety. If we're deficient in magnesium, we will have anxiety. Those are the three main ones. So we want to make sure that we're sufficient in that. So I recommend that everyone takes a blood test once a year to check all the nutritional levels and just make sure all the nutrients are up, because one of the causes for anxiety is nutritional deficiency. And we know how deficient people are these days. People are eating food, but they're not actually getting any nutrients from it.
And doctors miss that. We miss that. We just will, well, I guess you need some Xanax, you know, but that's not it. You have to look for the root cause.
You have to heal the root cause. And if the root is, moldy, the root is dirty, we need to go in and clean it out. We need to heal it. We need to strengthen the root if we want to bear good fruit on the plant. So it's like really getting in there. And I do wish more doctors were more open like you with nutrition. And Dr. Stephen, don't you think that there should be some kind of functional or nutritional component that doctors have to take before they can give nutrition advice to patients?
Uh, Absolutely. I mean, we should all be enrolling in the Liana Werner-Gray nutrition class as a mandatory thing as part of med school, because we seriously, we're not getting it. They just really go straight over it. And I think some of the newer classes coming out are more, a little more open-minded, but still we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. And we have to partner with our nutritionists, with our
Yes.
naturopaths, and
Team.
get it's a team.
Mm-hmm.
It's a team approach. I welcome, like I mentioned before, the best of the best. We have to have a team approach. And you're on my team. You're on my team. Everyone listening right now who's ever been a patient of a Western practitioner, an oncologist, an internist, you have to look at it as a team approach, in my humble opinion, and make it work. Make it work for you. You can have your doctor talk to a nutritionist. You can have a nutritionist who can write a letter to your doctor. It's about communication and connection. If 2020 taught us anything, it's that we must connect. We must connect and be open and be a team like we're doing today. And I
Yeah.
can't, and I'm so happy to connect with you after, reading 3 of your books. To have you on the show is incredible, but go a little bit more. Like, I want the listeners to be able to do something today when they finish this show, and they go to your website. What's your website? LianaWernerGray.com?
Yes, and theearthdiet.com as well.
What can they do today to feel a little less anxious? Feel a little, what swap can they make? What upgrade? How can they upgrade what they're doing right now today to feel 1% better than they did yesterday? And if that compounds over a year, 1% each day, right?
That's where the real work is. After we've done it for a year and 2 years and 3 years and 4 years, that's when we see results. Really, after that, that's complete transformation. So I would say pick your number one biggest obstacle. And for me, it was chocolate. So whether it's whatever you feel like is bringing you down, the food, whether it's pizza or cheese or dairy or cookies, what is your biggest obstacle or your biggest weakness or the thing you crave the most? And start there. Cheese.
Pizza and cheese. My latest thing is, and you could please help me with this because I know this will be so relevant. So the latest thing is, I'm still, when my kids get a pizza, I'll scrape off just the cheese because I'm keto, right? So, I'm doing keto. So I'm allowing myself to scrape. I take a fork and a knife and I don't eat the dough, but I scrape off the pizza cheese. But still, I know deep down I shouldn't be having dairy.
Well, it depends. Dairy can be good for some people. It depends on their bodies. And that's why I have a very bio-individual approach with my practice.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, and that's why in my book, dairy is actually on the controversial list. It's not on the for sure anxiogenic list. So it can cause anxiety for some, but others it can be healing and nourishing. For me personally, it does not work for me. Dairy does not work. So I've cut it out of my diet. I might have dairy once a month, and that's a really good balance for me. And I feel really good about that. But for certain people, especially blood type O's, I've found that their blood chemistry can really take in the cheese and they use it as fuel. Whereas I've found blood type A's, they get really tired and sluggish and they gain weight very quickly from dairy or from cheese. And so I always tell people, if you think dairy is good for you and it really resonates, then just make sure it's high quality dairy, because low quality dairy is a contributor to many health issues, including anxiety and cancer. So dairy has to be high quality. That's the rule. Number one rule.
So pizza cheese, scraping off pizza cheese is not really the thing, right? I mean, just from a regular pizza joint.
No, yeah. So you'd want to make sure it's a good high quality pizza joint, or buy some organic pizza to have at home. And then you could also make it yourself. But there's some great organic brands at Whole Foods you can have with high quality cheese. That way it's not going to do as,
and probably a different kind of crust.
You could also have, if you want an organic wheat crust, or you could go gluten-free crust, or you could even go, cauliflower crust. And that's true keto, true paleo. But if anyone's having certain health issues, especially lung issues or skin issues, gut issues, brain fog, I do recommend doing an experiment and going off dairy for at least 7 days and just see how you feel. And people with asthma or any lung issues, they feel after 7 days, they feel way better, because dairy is inflammatory. It does put mucus on the lungs. So Dr. Stephen, you might want to do an experiment, and I can help hold you accountable if you like. And you could try it for 7 days and just see how you feel and notice the difference. And then maybe you have to say, you know what, dairy for me is going to be once a month or twice a month. And that's going to be my balance.
Would you help hold me accountable?
Definitely would. Would love to.
Tell everybody out there how important it is to have an accountability partner who they could also find through you and your courses. I'm sure you can get an accountability partner.
Yes, accountability is everything. I'm going to say it is everything. It's what will make or break a person achieving their goals, because we were not designed to be isolated and do things alone. We just were not. And this is what I learned from the indigenous communities. And it's the same. I mean, if you set a goal to yourself and nobody else knows, you're more likely to be like, oh, it doesn't really matter. And whereas if you're going to meet a friend for the gym, you're more likely going to show up than if it's just like you telling yourself, I'm going to go tonight. So humans, we work stronger and better with accountability partner, with a team. And so that's why when people work with me one-on-one, they get results. It's impossible to not achieve your health goals because we're working together. As long as you don't quit the program, doesn't matter if it's hard, you just stay in it.
You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah, it's not about that. It's progress over perfection.
Yes, because I'm a perfectionist, and then I tend to go all in and all or nothing. And it's not that. It's you got to give that up. It's not that you must be perfect. You just must be consistent and forgive yourself and have self-compassion. Yes. And let go of the making wrong, beating yourself up if you have a slip. It's the same thing with addiction. Of anything, you have to forgive. You have to, okay, I had a slip and I get back on the path. And it's a forgiveness and getting back on the path. Forgiveness, letting go, getting back on the path. You have to do it 5 times, 10 times a day sometimes, right?
Yes, it's constant forgiveness. And this is what I always tell the people I'm working with. It's like when they can come clean and say, I ate this, I ate that, I went off plan. I'm like, okay, great. Now just come back on. Here's how you can make yourself feel better. Like jump back on, feel better again. And I've also set up a group coaching to help if people, because one-on-one can be quite pricey. So the group coaching is much more affordable, and it's still a really safe place where everyone holds each other accountable to achieve their goals. And for me, what made my difference was the blog, because readers from all around the world online, they helped hold me accountable, because every day I was like, I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to find a new recipe, a new health topic. I'm going to stick to eating from the earth today, because I didn't want to let the readers down also.
So a listener could start a blog today. They could start an Instagram series where they do a story that just says, okay, this is, what I ate today, and this is how I cheated today. But just
tag me. I can hold you accountable with Instagram stories too.
Yes. How to just tag you with hashtag? Oh, no, with at Liana Werner-Gray on
and
Insta.
Tag Dr. Steven too. Tag us both so we can both. There we
yes,
go.
At Dr. Steven Eisenberg on Insta and at Liana Werner-Gray on Insta. Tag us. We want to hold you accountable. I confess to you today that last night I did the scraping off of the pizza cheese, and it was a Costco pizza. I came home from work, first day back at work, and I come home and there's on the counters a Costco pizza. And I'm like, because I was hungry, I was stressed, and I'm like, Costco pizza. But I'm like, no, keto. Quote, I have stuck to it, but I scraped off the cheese. So I'm confessing that. I'm telling you that I'm gonna go dairy free for 1 week and see how I feel. Because I've had asthma in my life. It's okay right now. It's not horrible, but I think it could be better. I think it could be better.
Yeah, let's do an experiment. Let me know how you feel.
It's an experiment, and I'm going to follow up with you.
Excellent.
We're coming to the end of this incredible show with just a wonderful human being. So expressive, so vulnerable, so honest about your own life, your own struggles, going from mess to success, as we say. And thank you for coming on the Dr. Steven Show. We are about just bringing actionable insights and bringing the healthiest, wonderful people together to just share their stories and be accountable for each other and a team and connecting. And don't be afraid to reach out to Liana Werner-Gray. She's so open, so willing to share her experiences, and her courses, her books are amazing. LianaWernerGray.com, HayHouse.com has all of her books. At Hay House Inc. on Insta. Liana Werner-Gray, your latest book, Anxiety Free with Food. Please get this book. We are anxious, and just forgive yourself for not being perfect. If you can eat one anxiolytic food today instead of anxiogenic food today, making that upgrade, it's that little step, and then the next day and the next day, right? It's building upon those small steps, right, Liana?
Exactly. Yeah, and that will build momentum.
Liana, now, we're coming out of this, we're in a really tough time in the world right now. What would you like to leave every listener with? You're on I want you to just, close your eyes for a second and imagine you're on a Zoom with with 7.2 billion viewers right now. And every human being is going to be watching this Zoom for 30 seconds. I want you to speak to the world as if 7.2 billion viewers are watching you right now. What do you want them to know? What's your message to the world right now?
Wow, that's such a great question. I would say that to stay open and to know and trust that we did not come here to suffer with the same health issue for years, and that any health issue, whether it's cancer, disease, anxiety, depression, can be broken and you can be set free from it. I never used to believe this until I was completely healed and transformed. And that made me believe in God. I can't not believe in God now because of that. And just to completely stay living in faith every single day. Don't accept feeling anxious every day, and don't accept having to live with a certain health issue. If you feel like you have a desire inside yourself to heal, and know that we have to get nutrition every single day to feel good, to feel sane, and to feel energized, and to sleep better, have good relationships. Having a good diet is everything, and it will transform all areas of your life. And getting nutrition in doesn't have to be tasteless, and it doesn't have to be boring. It can be so exciting and so delicious. And that's why I have all these recipes and health tips in my book. And I'm so excited for you guys to try it. And I invite you today just to plant the upgrade system in your mind. And every time you have a craving for a food that you know isn't helping your health, just think, okay, how can I eat this, but in the more natural, healthy, wholesome way? Like make your own chocolate balls, or cookie dough with almond flour and maple syrup, for example, or make your own chicken nuggets with organic chicken and almond flour and turmeric and some sea salt. And so there you go. Our life is totally set, but we have to make sure we're getting proper nutrition every single day.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, it's beautifully said. Beautiful story. Thank you so much for everything you're doing in the world, for all the human beings you're helping. You're making such a profound difference each day. And thank you just for being a human being who cares and connects and has such compassion.
Thank you, Dr. Stephen. You are such a legend oncologist. I'm so grateful to know you, so grateful to be on your team, and you are just amazing. Thank you for this epic interview and for having me on.
Thank you. And we will talk soon. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you next time on the Dr. Stephen Show. Everyone, wave goodbye to the wonderful Liana Werner-Gray.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
There's a doctor named Stephen Eisenberg down San Diego way. He's got a didgeridoo, and man, you just gotta hear him play. When his people come in for chemo, he knows they'll be upset. He picks up that didgeridoo and plays music they can't forget. Dr. Stephen Eisenberg, Dr. Stephen, woo, Dr. Stephen Eisenberg, Dr. Stephen Eisenberg.